I'm just gonna come out and say it. Survivor is not the weakest JoJo stands. So, I mean, if you've spent any time in the JoJo's community, you've probably heard the take before Survivor is the weakest stand ever. Even the series itself leans into the idea that Survivor is the weakest stand, but what if this isn't entirely true? What if Survivor isn't weak? Just no one understands it. So today I'm going to be breaking down how Survivor works and why it's labelled the weakest, and why that label might actually be misleading. Because, well, firstly, let's just go over what Survivor actually does. Survivor appears in Part 6, Stone Ocean, and it's owned by the prisoner. Well, originally not owned by the prisoner, but given to the prisoner by Poochie with the disc. It's given to, forgot his name, Guccio. Unlike most stands, Survivor just doesn't punch, shoot, or defend. Instead, it operates in a completely different way from stands that we've actually seen before. Survivor spends spends all its time on the floor, and it spreads tiny little electrical impulses across the surface, usually the ground, that subtly affects the nervous systems to anyone who comes into contact with it. But what does those little electric volts do? It amplifies aggression. People under Survivor's influence becomes more irritable, more emotional, and way more likely to pick fights. It basically pushes people into conflict. But here's the key detail. It doesn't control people. It nudges them. And that distinction is incredibly important. But first, so why does Survivor get labelled as the weakest stand? There are a few reasons. First, it has no direct offensive capability. It can't throw punches, it can't block attacks, and can't physically defend its user. And secondly, it's indiscriminative. Survivor affects everyone within range, including allies, even the user of the stand. And thirdly, it doesn't guarantee results. People may fight, or they may resist the influence altogether. And finally, even the story calls it weak. There's a line that explicitly describes how Survivor is the weakest stand, especially, I think Dio said that. Case closed, right? Not quite, because all of these weaknesses actually hide something more interesting. The biggest misconception, people judge Survivor like it's supposed to win a one-on-one fight. But that's not what it's designed for. Survivor is a chaos type stand. Its strength isn't indirect combat, it's destabilizing entire environments. Think about it like this. Most stands are weapons. Survivor is just the trigger. Drop Survivor into a crowded space like a prison, or a battlefield, even a city street, and suddenly tensions explode. Minor disagreements turn into full-blown fights. Groups fracture, alliances collapse. It turns order into chaos. And in the right situation, chaos is far more dangerous than raw strength. But what makes Survivor especially dangerous is how subtle it is. There's no flashy attack, no obvious stand effect. Kind of like time stopping or explosions. They're just flashy, they're designed to grab your attention. People just get angry with Survivor. And because of the influence, victims don't realize that they're being manipulated. They think their emotions are their own. That means that they don't defend against it. They lean into it. This is actually a huge advantage. Compare that to other stands. Once you know how they work, you can counter them. But how do you counter your own emotions? That's a much harder problem. Another thing people overlook is that Survivor doesn't need to win fights directly, it creates opportunities. Imagine you're a stand user hiding in a prison block, you activate Survivor, suddenly everyone around you start fighting each other, guards are distracted, enemies are weakened, and the environment becomes unpredictable. In that chaos, you don't need a powerful stand, you just need timing. Survivor turns a battlefield into in your favor, completely manipulates everything. So you just need timing to win. If Jolene had really bad battle knowledge and everything in that fight, she would have lost. I'm just saying. It's not weakness, it's just strategy that makes Survivor such a dangerous stand. At its core, Survivor is just a psychological weapon. And psychological abilities in JoJo are some of the most dangerous. Why? because they bypass the physical strength entirely. I mean, it doesn't matter how strong you are. If your judgment is compromised, you're vulnerable. Survivor exploits one of the most fundamental human traits, aggression. And that aggression is amplified. Even the strongest characters can make mistakes in JoJo. Mistakes are deadly. So, let's come back to the main question. Is Survivor really the weakest stand? If you define strength as raw combat power, then sure, Survivor ranks pretty low. It can't punch like Star Platinum, or it can't even warp reality like some of the more broken stands in the series. But if you define strength as impact, as utility, as the ability to control a situation, Survivor becomes a lot more interesting, because in the right environment, it can influence dozens, maybe hundreds of people at once. It can turn allies into enemies. It can collapse entire groups from the inside. That's not weak. That's actually terrifying. But at the end of the day, Survivor is a perfect example of how JoJo's Bizarre Adventure plays in the idea of power. Not every stand is about brute force. Some are about control, some are about manipulation, and some, like Survivor, are letting human nature do the work for you. So maybe Survivor isn't the weakest stand. Maybe it's the people who underestimate it the most, just because it can't physically attack anyone. But what do you think? Is Survivor actually weak, or is it secretly one of the most dangerous stands in the entire series? Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.